Welcome, everybody. Tonight is March 1st, right? Yep. For our regular quarterly meeting, like to get the meeting started at, my clock says 7:10 p.m. Freddie, you gonna be able to take notes tonight? Or
Rose take
actually,
notes.
Rose is doing that tonight, right?
Yeah.
Silence.
That's okay. She probably has her mic off. So thank you for all joining in tonight. Lots going on in the world, so our heads are all cluttered, but we're going to get through this and make the best of it. It's always nice to see your smiling faces. Thank you for doing this. And Betty, I know that you're messing up your Jeopardy, but we're glad you're here.
It's almost over now.
They're on double jeopardy at this point.
Has anybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments, changes, anything that needs to be fixed?
No.
I didn't see anything. I looked at them just a little while ago.
So beautifully organized. Thank you, Rose.
Rose did a good job.
Her mic is off.
So if there are no additions or changes, then we can move on to a vote. Would like to
You
make
need a motion and a second before the vote?
Would like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I second the motion. Oh, I'm
Oh.
Betty Heaney.
Betty
Are you
makes a
seconding or making a motion?
I'm trying to be serious.
So Brian, you're looking for somebody to make the motion.
Yes, please.
Betty seconded, but we still need somebody to make.
Okay, I'll Fred Velarde, commission member. I'll make a motion to accept meetings, accept the minutes as written.
And I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very kindly. Minutes accepted. Moving on to the general manager's report. You want to talk about the January, February on-air fundraising drive? Kurt?
Yes. So we have 3 4-day drives a year, fall, winter, spring. This was the winter one. We did have to split it up because of this big storm. So we did Thursday and Friday, took a week off and came back for Saturday and Sunday. So it wasn't the last 4 days in January, but it was rather the last Thursday and Friday in January and the first Saturday and Sunday in February. Let's see. Rose did an excellent job, and I'll just summarize with some numbers here, which let me just dig up. We'd never, once or twice before with bad weather, we'd taken a longer drive and split it up into segments. This is the first time we'd done 2, a break of a week and another 2, but it worked out just fine. Like I said, let me just scroll back to early February here. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. I got caught on the phone with the Wmnr broadcaster a few minutes ago, and the phone call went on longer than I expected. We originally had a goal of, I believe it was $70,000, and we ended up Feb 7. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we had a goal of 70,000. We ended up having a total of 66,723. The 70,000 was an aggressive goal. We're quite happy with the 66,000, particularly with the split up drives and the lack of momentum. A lot of people were very supportive of the station in their donations, large and small. A lot of positive comments, and we still observed COVID protocols at the station. Everyone speaking into a microphone was in a different room from each other. And the phone answers were spread out and not all bunched up in one room like they used to be. So the winter drive went well. And let's see, I guess that would be my report on that.
When you set up the drive and have a goal like that, do you tell the listeners what your goal is?
Yes, we do. I mean, we also had a goal of 88 new members. I think we had a little less because it's our 40th anniversary and our primary frequency is 88.1. But it was a we had 60 new members, but that was still fairly good. So yeah, we do tell everybody.
Kurt, will all the future pledge drives be the 4-day format?
Yes.
You find that much more profitable than the week?
Before COVID, we were doing 8-day drives.
Right.
And with COVID, our 8-day drive got turned into a 1-day drive where we made 1/3 of the money in one day, which was pretty good. So then when we did start doing drives, long drives a year and a quarter ago, we dropped it down to 4 days and we're able to make the same amount of money in 4 days that we used to make in 8 days, or very, very close.
Excellent.
And of course, who need, in this case, less definitely was more. So we intend to stick to the 4-day drives.
Very good.
Thinking. All right, do you want to move on to the financial report?
Yes, so I emailed out a copy, and if everyone's got it, this is our finances as of January 31st, and it includes the comparables to a year ago. Let's see, let me take a look at it just so I can give you the overview. Of course, it goes without saying that we're in good shape. There are some differences comparing the January 31st of this year compared to last year. On the revenue side, January 31st this year had $496,000. A year ago, it was 30,000 more, but that's just because of the, you'll see in the charitable gifts column, we had gotten extra money that was a bequest that came in. But still the 496 is, if you take a look on our budget under revenue under charitable gifts, you'll see that this year we'd taken in 50,000 in charitable gifts, and a year ago we took in 99,000 and change. And obviously that's less, but the charitable gifts column represents, for the most part, large, it represents bequests, which are really one-time gifts, or a large donation, which the 50,000 was, which wasn't bequest, but it was from a donor that had never given before. And so we wanted to treat it as a not usual, but an unusual characteristic. You'll actually see that in the budget, if you go to the column left of charitable gifts, $99,000 for last year, you'll see that the budget for charitable gifts for this year of FY22 is zero. Some type cases before the budget is approved in May, I know of something that will come in the next fiscal year. I didn't know about the 50,000. We ended up getting it. So even though the 50,000 is less than the 99,000 from a year ago, I budgeted zero. So actually, it represents really found money for this year. And just to put the big picture on it, if you were to look at the very bottom of the expenses column for the net income or loss, we had budgeted for this year under the FY 2022 a loss of $44,000. That, of course, was going to come out of our excess cash reserves. But truth be told, with the $50,000 coming in on it that wasn't budgeted, my guess is we'll end up not running a loss, but running a little bit of a surplus. So the big picture is it's good. If you were to look at the expenses for January 31st a year ago versus January 31st this year, yes, they're up a little, 386,000 this year compared to 370 last year. But and I'd have to look through and figure out exactly what the difference is. But it's still a fairly close number considering, I mean, the $16,000 difference isn't a big amount when our total budget for the year is, budgeted to be, the expenses were budgeted to be 699,000. So it's well within normal range. If there are any specific questions about anything on the revenue side or the expense side for this year, or comparing this year to last year, or this year compared to the budget, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
Well, now I know I'm the queen, Kurt, but I really don't know what are royalty income. It's not that much, but I don't remember seeing royalty
No,
income.
you're correct. It is a new category. So Wmnr uses Corporation for Public Broadcasting funds. About 22% of our roughly $80,000 CPB grant each year requires it to be spent on producing or purchasing national programming. We purchase a little, like Exploring Music and Peter Van der Graaf, but we have about we have a spare $10,000 left. So we use that to produce Morning Classics with Gary Gerard. It's produced and it's offered nationally, as well as we use it locally. Now there's another program that we offered last year, and it was called The Best of the BSO. And I paid a former Boston Symphony Orchestra concert producer to produce some programs, which we used 2 summers ago when Tanglewood was on a reduced schedule. And they're generic and we can use them again. He redid one of them and other stations picked them up. And because one station in particular picked it up, that's where the $300 in royalties came from. And normally $300 is an amount that's compared to a $700,000 or $655,000 budget doesn't deserve its own category. But the Corporation Public Broadcasting and our annual grant that we get, they want us to individually list the royalty income so it can be split out. And the royalty income will not be matched by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which matches about 7 or 8 cents on the dollar. So it's listed because we have to split it out because they're not going to match it. And frankly, the $300 was a little bit of an accident. Normally, I give away our programs for free. We already have the Corporation for Public Broadcasting paying to have them produced, and they're of only interest to a handful of stations. So that's where that came from, and you're an eagle-eye person to notice it.
Thank you. Well, I was the term.
Some of the actual excess, is that because we haven't done the generator or tower upgrades yet?
When you say excess, you mean why were we planning on running a negative $44,000 a year budget?
Well, no, that was the forecast, right? And then the actual was 110K. And I just didn't know if it part of the reason was because the monies were not spent yet for
Yeah,
those.
the 110K is not for the whole year. It's as of Jan 31st, so that's only 7 of the 12 months.
I see. I'm sorry. Yep.
So in terms of netting out, so here's what happens. We don't fundraise, our fiscal year starts July 1. We don't fundraise much in July, August, or September. This last year, we did have a fundraiser in late September, but so we have pretty much the same expenses every month, but the income varies quite a bit. You don't really know until the low point cash flow wise is right before our fall first drive in September, October. But we won't really know how that plays out till the end of the year. But my guess is it'll be fairly close. The $155,000 expenses, I think, a year ago included the new transmitter. Somehow I think we spent money on that last year. I can't remember.
Okay. Yep. I see where I got tangled up in the numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Patty's indicating no. Fred, you're good?
Yeah, it looks fine. It makes sense.
Okay, so tonight's vote, Kurt, is going to be to accept these as presented.
By the way, just to mention in the fine print underneath net income or loss, we've got both a money market account that makes a little bit of interest and a checking account. It shows the two balances as of January 31st. Obviously, we got a lot of spare change in the accounts. This is after 1.5 pledge drives. Well, 4 days in September, 1 day in December, and 2 days in January. These numbers capture that income. The low point cash flow wise is in late September. But yes, if someone could make a motion and someone second it, and then we vote on it, that'd be great.
I vote that we accept it.
I'll second.
Second.
Nature member.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Budget is accepted as presented. Great. So we're going to move on to the Wmnr 40th anniversary.
Yeah,
Sorry for spelling it wrong.
it's spelled that way because it's 40.
I wondered where your spell check was.
It's got the O in there for 40.
Anyway, so of course, John and Carol can't be here tonight, but John and Carol did start the station in December of 1973. But it was transformed into a largely classical station, serving a larger area. And they had their first on-air fundraiser in January of 1982. I didn't show up until 6 months later. This is our 40th anniversary as a classical public radio station, not just dedicated to serving the town. We've got some events we're going to be doing. We'll be doing a public open house in June. I believe. Let me get my phone. Double check the
I
date.
hope not the 11th.
Why? Because that's my birthday.
It is. Wow, I have to write that down.
Are you planning in advance?
Yeah, 39 years. We have to celebrate.
We're going to be having it on, I believe, on a Sunday. We need the open house in June. Let's see. Right, June 12th. So we'll have an open house here on June 12th in the afternoon, potentially noon to 3 or 1 to 4.
Great.
And then we're also looking at having a, we used to have a broadcast, volunteer and staff get together, uh, usually a dinner. And we're going to be looking at doing that in September, on September 18th. And of course, WMNR Commission members will be invited. We're looking for a venue for it. And it'll be a internal celebration.
Very nice.
It's been a I've been fortunate to be here for, well, 40 years this November as general manager. And there are a lot of people that have come and gone or come but not here all the time, the least of which is John and Carol, that have really made this station a success. And I, as just somebody who's been around a long time, and but a symbol of the many people and the many hours. And we still have two broadcasters with us who have been here on off since 1982. And many others have been here for 30, 35 years, 38 years. So we're going to try to do a good celebration and do a good recognition, not just at the open house, which will require people to physically show up, but also to come up with something, perhaps some videos that one of our volunteers might produce, and some web pages, which would
Wonder who.
What?
I wonder who would do the video. Have you
Right.
contacted Bill Stein yet?
Well, I believe he's already offered, and of course we
Good.
took him up and said yes. But there'll be also some other. I mean, there's we don't have a photo of everyone who's been a broadcaster for the last 40 years, but we have photos of lots of them, and I'd like to at least their names and some of their pictures be there on a web page for a little bit. And I frankly, even for the event here, and when we have folks showing up, I want to have a presentation, even if it's just their photos and their names or something that scrolls by on a TV set in the lobby. And we could actually have that TV set in the lobby going for most of this year for people that happen to come in. And also, while we don't have a lot of people come in, also to just make sure that our existing broadcasters, volunteer broadcasters and paid staff that have been with us so long, are honored and recognized. Every year I update a poster in our lobby. I know not everyone's been here. Trying not to give you vertigo by moving too fast. But when I walk out into the main lobby here, we've got, and this year's poster says, as of 2022, our 40th anniversary, it lists the broadcasters and the first date they began broadcasting. The staff go on the bottom. Some have hyphens. Susan Prince was here from 85 to 96, left and then came back. And there are, and these are just, again, a small sample of this last pledge drive. I mean, in our lobby, in our hallway here, we've got photos of some of the broadcasters from our last open house. The cool thing is, Gary Fountain here was just visiting as a listener, but I instantly roped him in to be a broadcaster. And
Hey, you've got a good voice.
and so I want to get some more photos of some of our staff that we don't have here permanently up on the walls. And I'd also like to make sure that I just want to make sure everyone is really appropriately thanked and recognized, because we wouldn't be here without them. You know, during this last pledge drive, we still got one or two pledges in honor of a broadcaster who passed away, who was here from 82 to 2007, Delphine Marcus. And here, all these years later, people still remember her and are giving their donation in memory of her. So we have a real impact on folks, and it's thanks to our broadcasters that we do. And I just want to make sure that that we celebrate all that in our 40th. So we're just thinking of the one public event, the private event for the staff, and then some public events for YouTube and whatever. I am considering doing a week featuring. I'll have to pick a week out where it would work, where we might feature an hour here or an hour there of some former broadcasters that aren't around or no longer with us. Might feature a Carl Haas one night before a Bill McLaughlin, and take some of our existing broadcasters and maybe just interview them and give a minute or two of a background on them, because some of them are shy and they don't really tell you that much about themselves. And some of them have done some pretty interesting things. So we'll try and do a 1 week on the air where we celebrate our history a little bit. Since there's not a specific day, well, this is when we turned the transmitter on, or we didn't have classical before and we switched to classical on this date. It was a transition. We'll pick a week that works well sometime this summer or this fall for that.
That's great. When was the last time you guys did a picnic?
Picnic.
Well, the last time we had a staff, a volunteer and staff dinner was right before COVID in January of 2019, if I got my years correct. No, 2020, I guess. Yeah, and that was when Jane retired. We met at Roberto's.
I remember. Okay. Great.
Which
That all-
sounds very nice and high class. Sounds good. I like the way you said something for the public and something private, and that's the way it should be. I think.
and I love that the people that aren't with us anymore are still remembered. I think that's very important.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, moving on then, we'll go on to the town administrative fee.
Yes. The only thing I can reference with specific numbers was in the budget that you all approved for the existing fiscal year that was presented last May. I didn't have a chance to update the numbers, but the concept's still there. And I'll just repeat those numbers as soon as I click on it. So I've had some WMNR commission members tell me privately that they think the fee's high. I remember when it was first assessed in 2009, we ended up having to pay an attorney to come up with the justification for it for the town for charging us $30,000 a year. But the justification was, well, that's less of a percentage than the city of New London charges somebody else. It was never done as a zero sum. Okay, how much time we had just become a part of the town in April of 2009, and this was working on the new budget for 2009, 2010. There was never a zero sum. Okay, how many POs and checks will WMNR cut? How does that compare with the total number of purchase orders and checks, payroll and otherwise that other departments get issued, or that the town issues, not on the school board side, but on the town board side by itself. So since then, it's been increased some years not. But again, there was never a real justification for it. And just to review the number of the overall numbers that were in the budget from last summer that y'all approved. Yes, let's see. For the current fiscal year, We were paying $39,504 a year to the town. $5,280 goes to human resources to handle our 2 full-time and 9 part-time employees. And $34,224 goes to the finance department. This pays for, in the current fiscal year, 10.1% of the finance department's expenses, while Wmnr is only 2.2% compared to the town side of the budget. I say compared to the town side of the budget because the Board of Ed has their own finance people, though there is now a shared finance director that's partially paid from both the town and the school side, but all the people that work underneath them, I wasn't comparing apples to apples. I was trying to compare, wasn't trying to compare apples to oranges. I was trying to compare us directly to the town side of the budget, which is what the town finance department is responsible for. So the 10% that we're paying for 10% of their expenses, while we're only 2% of the town's side of the budget, the numbers just seem off quite a bit. And the one thing I was wondering was if the Wmnr Commission would like for me to request a zero-sum explanation of it. Not just, oh, well, we had to go up 3% from last year because we're paying employees more. But where did the original number come from? What are we really paying for? So I just didn't know if this was of a concern to the Wmnr Commission and if they wanted for me to try to get information on it.
I think it deserves a little more explanation.
Yeah, does it include any type of matching taxes, health insurance, anything else that's not in your budget, but that comes out of that?
Let's see. So the well, of course, taxes aren't involved with the town or Wmnr since we don't pay any taxes, sales taxes.
Employees.
Now, in terms of the employee FICA and FUTA, Medicare, Medicaid, health insurance, there is an employee portion and an employer portion, and Wmnr pays for the employer portion, and that's you'll see that in our expenses under salaries part-time and salaries full-time. We pay for the employer portion of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. So I shouldn't say Medicaid, really, Medicare, Social Security, and the employer portion that for the health insurance that the town uses for non-union employees, that we pay for that, and that comes out on the payroll side. That's a payroll cost, so it's not coming out of that. Now, what is covered out of that? Well, they're writing checks. They're approving purchase orders that are the basis for the checks. They do a bank reconciliation monthly. We have our own accountant, but most departments don't. But we did before we were part of the town when we were writing our own checks and doing our own bank rec. But back when we were with the Board of Ed before 2009. But since then, we've kept that person to help push the paperwork through and double check some of the numbers. So I mean, our accountant's only part-time, but so no, so we're paying for monthly bank recs. The audit fees might be included in that. Some years we've been charged extra $1,000 for being part of the town audit. Our own $10,000 audit that we pay for that's directed specifically towards us is not included in that. That's an expense category that we pay out directly to that firm. And the other thing that the finance department ends up covering, besides just finance, is something that's really never been tracked, but Wmnr has a lot of equipment, I mean, it does really, it's not as expensive as all the equipment in the town buildings and the town building, the cost of the town, value of the town buildings and all that. But, you know, whatever property insurance we have and liability insurance, which is required to be on some of our radio towers, we write off of the town's policy. And what our prorated share is, no one's ever really given me a number on. I don't know how big their bill is, you know, to insure the town roads, bridges, buildings, fire trucks, you know, school supplies, all that kind of a thing. I'm sure we're actually a pretty small number compared to the amount of property that the town has to have covered by an insurance policy. But that part would come out of that.
That's the only thing on the expense side that really comes out of that.
For the finance department, yeah.
The finance department would have to go write checks on, not payroll taxes, not health insurance, but liability insurance.
Well, I don't know if they could figure out what our prorated share is in a general way.
I understand.
And so, you know, that's a little bit of a whatever. You know, right now we pay for HR's time, we pay for finance department's time. We're not paying for the first selectman's time. We're not paying for the first selectman's assistant time, who gets involved in making sure when things have to go to town council for approval that they're listed. Quarterly, we get involved with the town clerk for posting the Wmnr commission meetings, but that's really not much time at all. You know, we don't use town IT. You know, it's just really just HR and finances.
And even on finances, it's mostly just checking functions. It's a little bit, you said, purchase orders and writing some checks.
Purchase orders, checks, the pay, you know, obviously payroll checks as well. So that's part of what we're paying for, to have somebody input our data and make sure it's correct, and make sure stuff goes out. Yeah.
Okay. I remember when this was first thrust upon us. I guess that was Tom Boozy at the time.
Well, yes, it was in 2009 when the town took over the station for the 2009-2010 fiscal year.
And his attitude was it wasn't really open for discussion. It was, this is what it is, deal with it, sort of, was the reaction that I got back at that time when we were given this, when the station was given this fee that it
Correct.
didn't have before. And now that we see it growing, I'm just trying to figure out how to budget for that as an organization. If you tied it to a consumer price index or some other standard that you could help forecast on, you could say, okay, well, it's going to go up 2% per year over a period of time. But since we don't have the real cost of where it started from, it's difficult to use a regular index to increase that by. And the way you're being served it is they just kind of tell you, here's your new fee this year. That they don't really have a dialogue with any of us or with you as to how your expenses are increasing for the year.
Correct. I mean, they haven't told me what it's going to be for the next year, but actually it's listed in the draft version of the budget. You know, there's never a discussion. One year they gave me a spreadsheet saying, well, the following employees are getting a 2.3 or a 2.9% increase, and so the average of this will be, and you're going to go up a certain percentage. But the base amount was never set. We're paying 10% of a department when we're only 2% of the size. And I really can't imagine that the number of checks and POs that we're writing, you know, we have a lot of monthly things we do, but it's one PO and then we write a bunch of checks to the phone company or the power company. I really can't imagine that it's that we're really using up 10% of their time.
Is there someone that actually does this? I mean, who figures this out? The accountant? I mean, how do they come up with this number?
Well, again, the number came up in 2009 under First Selectman Boozy. And it's been increased over the years based on the cost of what they've had to pay their employees a higher amount, but again, there was never a base justification for it in terms of was the 25,000 to finance and the 5,000 to HR appropriate in the first place?
Does anyone else pay a fee to them besides, I mean, like the library or somebody? Does anyone else have some kind of a set fee? That
From what I look at the budget, I don't see that. I mean, it was a long time ago, but Tom Boozy said he was hoping eventually to maybe have EMS be able to kick in a little to help for paying for its work in finance. Frankly, I could be wrong since I don't follow these things quite so in depth, but my guess is that right now EMS is pays somebody else to do billing. And of course, right now, the volunteer fire department, the volunteer EMS, they use a commercial service to help. And that service gets paid, but they might be using a third-party service to handle that billing because, that medical stuff and it's separate. So I don't know what Tom Boozy said in 2009 and how things are operating now. I know that when you look into this money doesn't show up on a revenue side of the town budget. If you look in the expense side for finances and finance department and human resources, you'll see a credit. In one case of, I think finance, it's labeled as Wmnr credit on the expense side. And I think on HR, it's just labeled as, interagency credit or something. So we're a credit on the expense side. We're not listed on the revenue side. But we're the only one where that's listed at. So I'm guessing no other department does.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think it makes sense for us to have it in the agenda when there's a change. I think it makes sense for us to all be aware of it and have a discussion on it, that it's reflected in the minutes, that it's reflected in the agenda, and that it's reflected now in these new recordings that we have of an area of concern. But I don't know, and I'm very interested in any of your sentiments as to whether we feel like in the current state of things, we want to go bring this to the town and make a big issue out of it, or whether we should reflect on this some and table it for another time. I'd be very interested in your thoughts.
I think given what we have talked about over the past few months, I think it may not be the time to approach this. Although it seems odd that it just sort of floats out there that I worked in business for almost 40 years. Everything I've ever done, and I wasn't a numbers person, although I was responsible for income and expenses, and I had a sales force reporting to me. I never had a number given to me at random, without some kind of paperwork, numbers to back up. I was told I had to make a certain number. At one point it was $6 million, 6.5 million, something like that. But that was based on past sales, growth, and so on. So that number meant something. They didn't just come up to, that's one of the things that I don't want to take up too much time, but when I first joined Appleton and Lang, I was the national sales manager, and I had an assistant sales manager. And one day I said to her, I was there a couple of months, and I said, oh, by the way, how do you determine the reps, what the reps have to make? Each individual rep is assigned a dollar amount based on their territory. And she said, I kind of make it up. And I said, look, you can't kind of make it up. You have to have a reason to do it. And then she quit. Luckily, she quit. She got married and left not too long after that. And I hired a person that had a financial background. And we went through every single rep's territory. We spent 2 days, 3 days, literally going through counting how many schools they called down, counting how many nursing students were in their territories. And we came up with a budget based on all of those facts, rather than just saying, well, the reps quotas, I make it up. You can't make it up. You have to have some fact. So the number that Kurt's talking about, I understand it's kind of arbitrary and it doesn't make sense. You know, that is it based on what they think we're worth? Not us, the commission, what Wmnr is worth. Maybe it's based on that, but I don't know. It seems odd, you know, that it's a number, you know, and it's a number that doesn't match up to anything. You know, it's like, you know, it's
I don't think it's a timing.
anything
It's
else.
just, if we feel that this is incorrect and should be looked into, shouldn't it be brought to the attention of the town?
Well, I'm wondering if it should be us that brings it to the attention of the town rather than Kurt.
Well, I mean, I meant
You know,
us, the commission, of course, Kurt's in charge.
well,
Question.
I know, I think given the stuff that's been going on with the town and the station and, you know, all of this, we had, Betty, you were there. We had a meeting with Kellogg and what's his name? I agree with Brian. I don't think this is the time to add another issue to that. But I think at some point it should be addressed. If it's an arbitrary number, you know, as Kurt says, it seems like we're paying a high percentage to a smaller percentage of what, you know, it's you check into a hotel room nowadays, there's like 5 different fees that seem to make, you know, like, well, there's a occupied fee or something. And that seems like the same kind of thing. It seems like a number that's sort of pulled out of somebody's hat that says, okay, well, let's charge them, get away with 40,000, let's do it. So I don't know. But I agree with you, Brian. I think this may not be the time to directly deal with.
Not the time, but don't table it permanently.
No, I don't. Brian's not suggesting that we table it permanently. I think he's just saying that for now, we should look into it. But I think that should be an issue for the commission because that's what we do, supposedly. That's what we're dealing with. So I think it probably is something we should look into and sort of consider what's going on. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Kurt's retirement and his replacement and all of that jazz. This may not be the time to bring up the, you know, what they do, what the fee is.
Patty, did you want to add something?
Yeah, the town owns the radio station, correct?
Yeah.
So the people who work at the radio station are town employees, just like everybody else who works at town hall.
Yep.
Okay. When
And
those
some of us are
departments,
volunteers.
well, I'm talking about what they're doing. So the people that work in the departments in town hall have to submit purchase orders. They have to have their paychecks written. Each of these departments have a fee for what work the finance department does for them.
Not that I know of. I think because the
So-
other departments are considered an essential town service, whereas WMNR is not an essential town service, that they're not expected to pay individually.
I'm confused. Why WMNR is employees are being treated differently than other people who are working in town hall and asking the finance department to do the exact same thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't get it. But
Well,
that seems strange to me.
you know, the money that's being donated, it's town money and it needs to be spent according to the town policy. So, you know, whether it's a $1 purchase order or a $100,000 purchase order, it takes about 5 people to sign off on it. And then there's a different 5 people, some different, some the same, that then make a check happen. And so all of that money does have to be treated the way our money cannot be treated any differently than the town money. I'm just wondering if they're charging us too much and that, you know, for doing that.
That was my question.
Yeah, it seems like some answers are something that we ought to pursue at some point. You know, like Fred was saying, I've got a business and you know what your expenses are.
Yeah.
You know your expenses better than you know your revenues, because the revenues can change.
That's right.
The only one that could just throw wild card numbers at us that we had to accept was healthcare during the Affordable Care Act. You know, our monthly healthcare expense went up from about $2,600 a month to over $8,000 a month, and we had no choice, and it just about put us out of business. If every different category of expense had that ability to swing and change that dramatically without giving you a multi-year heads up on it, most of us would be out of business, or our operations would fold. And so when you have a fee that's handed to you that wasn't there prior to 2009, I think an explanation is warranted. If you have increases that are coming down the line, I think that you should be able to budget for them and be able to, with some tie-in to the economy or something, be able to guesstimate, or the number of employees, or some index that you could reference that you could build your budgeting on. It's not a break the bank, putting us out of business type situation, but we went from $0 to $30,000 basically in a year with a single administration that was there. And there's no reason to say, even though this administration has been kind to us, we the station, we the commission, over the past number of years, that an administration change could significantly change the numbers. And if we don't have a say in it, we don't have an explanation for it, we don't have a way to forecast it, then it's a vulnerability that I'd like to try and tighten up at some point, but I don't think now is the time. That's my opinion.
Okay. Great. Would you like to move on to the next item?
Thank you all. Your feedback
Yeah.
was excellent.
Yeah.
So Section E is the FCC New York Translator license renewals.
Yes, they had to be filed by February 1st. The New York facilities had a different renewal date than the Connecticut ones. It's 3 months different. So the New York ones were filed before February 1st. They haven't been, our Connecticut ones will be granted at the end of March, right before April 1. And the New York ones won't be granted until right before they're within a couple of weeks before the period is up, which is I guess July 1 for the New York State, but it did get filed.
Great. Moving on to the Mount Kisco Translator.
Yes, the Mount Kisco Translator needs to be on the air by May 31st at 12:01 a.m. or we lose the authorization. It'll have been off the air, silent for a year, I'm still waiting for the town's special counsel involving telecommunications real estate to finish negotiating the lease with Crown Castle, a huge company that owns 40,000 sites. I'm going to send out an email today reminding the first selectman, the town attorney, and this attorney that we do need to have it on the air. The town has to approve it by the end of by the end of April. So we have 30 days to get electricity installed and turned on. There's already electricity at the site. They just have to energize the meter. To get the antenna rigged up 100 feet up on the tower and to get cable TV installed there, which we use for internet to feed our audio. 30 days will be tough for the installation, but it's the company Crown Castle owns 40,000 sites. They take their time, they're slow, and the special town council is very, very thorough and is taking quite a bit of time to review all of this. And I just have to remind them that there is the possibility we might lose the authorization. The thing about having this, the lease that the special town attorney is being careful about is that a cell tower can have a lot of liability, and the company that owns it wants to share that liability with whoever's on it. And so there's lots of provisions that probably will never happen, but they could, and they could end up costing us a lot of money. And so they're trying to go through and tighten some of those things up. But Crown Castle's not going to let them tighten up everything. They're not going to let the people on the tower walk away from sharing in a fair amount of the liability, which the town does have insurance, liability and property liability insurance. So I'm just going to remind them of it, that if they don't keep this thing going, we could end up losing the authorization and the ability to turn it back on the air. I reminded them of this in January 3rd email, told them in the fall. This outside attorney started working on this project back in August. We just got a bill because separate from the administrative fee, WMNR pays any legal fees that the town expends on our behalf. If the town attorney does any work, that we will pay that directly. In this case, this fellow's been working on mostly that lease, and we paid just about $4,000 to him so far. He's also working on a lease for a small site in Middlefield, which is very simple. It won't involve much money, but he's going to have a clean lease to sign. He doesn't like the one that they offered, but it's a bunch of guys that bought a telephone pole in a high mountain cheap, so they're not big legal and whatever. So we've spent a lot of money on Mount Kisco with the tower, with the company that owns the tower. We've got a construction permit. We've spent probably $4,000 or $5,000 just having all the construction, the building permit be granted. We've spent $2,500 moving getting authorization from the FCC to move from the old site, which we lost. They didn't want to have any radio there anymore, to this one. So we put a lot of money into it, and we just want to make sure the town knows that. And they need to move on it very quickly, as opposed to the pace they've been taking.
A lot writing on that. Thank you for updating us. Any questions? No. Anything you need from us, Kurt?
Nope, just wanted to keep you informed. It isn't often that we have the chance that, we might lose one of our facilities. So just wanted to make sure everybody knows that I've been warning people and they've been dragging their feet. And I'm going to remind them to pick up the pace.
Way to go.
Moving on to section G, the possible community advisory board.
Yes, this is something I dragged my feet on. I'll admit it. I just looked at the minutes from the March 2nd meeting from last year, which, if anybody needs to, the December minutes aren't up on the town website, but previous minutes of all the various meetings are there. We only held 3 meetings in 2021. So back in March 2nd of 2022, I had said that I would like to have a WMNR advisory committee made up of non-Monroe residents formed who could report to the WMNR Commission. I'd recommend that one person on the WMNR Commission also be on this advisory to act as official liaison. If agreed to, Kurt would bring it to the first selectman and the town council for approval. The advisory committee would be made up of neutral non-Monroe residents. The committee would help with fundraising for the station and programming feedback. Brian agreed with having a broader spectrum of people giving feedback to the station. And Kurt said it would make his day-to-day workload easier, especially in fundraising. Betty wants to make sure that there's a clear distinction between the advisory committee and the WMNR Commission. Kurt stated that he would like the advisory committee main function to be about fundraising. So I didn't present this, but I just wanted to let you all know that I am going to present it. I imagine it's going to take 3 to 9 months, 6 to 9 months for the town to approve it, because it's going to be totally different than any other group. While there are regional groups that the town appoints someone to be on, the Lake Zor Authority, for example, or other regional health authorities or something, the town's never on its own created an advisory group of non-Monroe residents. Of course, for a standalone advisory group, the members of it are recommended by the Democratic and Republican town committee chairs. The first selectman passes that recommendation on, and the town council usually then approves it. But who would recommend to appoint people not from Monroe? And then how would they feel comfortable have the town council then approving them? I would guess have to recommend that they be appointed, have a short couple sentence resume like are listed for those that get appointed to the various appointed groups in the town. But first selectmen and the town council would have to work out what they feel is appropriate. One of the reasons why originally, and I still would recommend that a WMNR commission member be on it as official liaison, so that this group would be seen as being a sub group of the WMNR commission, so that it would never look like non-Monroe people have a greater say than Monroe people in the running of the station, since it is officially WMNR is part of the town and needs to follow town the way the town operates, both the actual operation and the perception of operation. So anyway, I am going to write something up and send it to the first selectman to consider, and I imagine it'll take a while because it's going to require them to do something they haven't done before, and it's going to be a little bit strange. And I should have done it a year ago, but I'll do it now. I'll do it now.
I know it's been on your radar for some time, as you just described back in the minutes, and I think it's a good idea in terms of everything discussed: the creativity, the fundraising, the knowledge to classical music. I recently had a conversation with the first selectman and Frank Lieto, and I brought up the idea, just that it wouldn't be foreign, just trying to, not looking for any answers, not looking for anything, just to throw the idea out there so that I could take it, just test the temperature of the water, so to speak. And the reaction was positive. So I'm not giving you permission. It's totally up to them, but I can tell you that the idea was positively received. So.
Well, great. I mean, the town council will have to approve it. It's not it's different. And the town council has to approve all the authorization of all advisory groups.
Yep.
So great. Glad to hear it. So I'll be running that up the flagpole, and I won't wait to salute right away.
Okay.
That's that. One clarification I wanted to mention, since it was a side comment back on the administrative fee. I've since revised my retirement, and I think I mentioned this in a previous meeting, though I haven't looked at all the minutes. But I'm going to propose to the first selectman, and I've already proposed it, and he seems open to it, to consider the idea and have the town council approve it, that I would go half-time and that someone else would go full-time. Because of the CPB grant, we need 2 full-time paid people and 2 full-time equivalents. We actually right now have 2 full-time paid people, Rose and myself, and 4.3 full-time equivalents. A lot of people are willing to work part-time. We don't need them full-time. They have different needs to have different people do different things. And so a lot of part-timers work out great for the station. A lot of the part-timers are very dedicated to the station. So in that case, I won't then be retiring this coming fall. I'll get I have to put in a job description for myself and a revised job description for the person that'd be going full-time. The first selectman, HR, would mark them up, and then once they're satisfied with them, then they would present the job descriptions to the town council for approval. All full-time and part-time non-seasonal employees have to have their job descriptions approved by the town council. And then there would be able to be a change in who's the full-time person. But even if I'm only working part-time, needless to say, my dedication, my availability, my commitment to the station will be involve me 100%, even if I'm not working full-time for the station. I'm getting paid 35 hours a week, and I'm looking forward to shepherding it through this this next phase. Certainly, it was interesting. There was a meeting of managers of Eastern public radio stations in half the country, and one of them who'd been in the business for 35 years and running their station for 25 years said when COVID hit, when they said, yeah, they felt like, I signed up for a lot, but I didn't sign up for this. And they had been thinking about retiring, so then they decided to. And they'd been running a station and did a great job at doing a merger and all sorts of things. So they bowed out. I'm fortunate, COVID didn't impact us seriously. And I feel I still have some gas in my tank for the station. I just prefer at my age to be able to work half-time and always be around full-time to make sure we're going in the right direction. And then to work on finding my replacement and seeing how that could, who could be trained and developed. So I just wanted to mention that to the WMNR Commission to update something that had been presented. Well, it was actually presented in the budget that was approved last May.
That really makes me feel more comfortable. Thank you.
Now, I'm not going to be so bold as to tie my continued involvement to the station with everyone on the WMNR Commission staying as well. I'm not that kind of person. I believe in free will, but I just want to thank everyone who is a part of the WMNR Commission for the time you spend on us. For Fred, of course, it's a main part of his life every week. And for others, they listen. And if we had phone answers, they would come in like Betty. But I just want to thank everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very kindly.
And we're still looking for a person that the Republicans could appoint. We could add 5 members of the WMNR Commission. So if you know any Republicans or independents who the Republicans would, unaffiliated, that the Republicans would feel like appointing, please let me know and I'll pass the name along.
And if one of you would like the chairman's seat, please speak up also. That's open for discussion.
You're safe.
Thank you very much. Okay, I guess we'll continue forward onto the generator donation under new business.
Great. Let me go back here to my agenda. Yes. So I finally arranged an electrician to do the work, but it's an electrician originally from Monroe, does a lot of work for the town. The town, he's taken a look at it and felt that there wasn't enough room. So the thing is, we have a generator that's, we got maybe around 2004 or 5. And, it's not young. And we have a donated generator it's newer, about 4 or 5 years newer, that's still sitting in storage. The storage is pretty cheap. It's costing about $12 a month. So we're not bringing up a big bill. But it turns out what we had wanted to do was to have the newer donated generator be the primary generator, and that the existing generator be a secondary generator. But to do that, we would need to add an additional transfer switch. We currently have an automatic transfer switch that exercises the generator weekly to make sure that it'll turn on when told to turn on. And we weren't going to go so far as to have 2 automatic transfer switches, which could cause some complications. We were going to have the secondary generator be on a manual transfer switch, where you'd have to go over there and throw the switch and press a button to turn it on if the main one wasn't working. But I hear, but I haven't heard directly, I hear indirectly through the town that the electrician feels there needs to be, there isn't enough wall space to mount it. So I'd really want to get this guy to join Mark and I at the transmitter to say, okay, how much room do you need? And I think we'll be able to find it. We'll be able to make a little more room. There is some equipment that could be moved. We could find some other space for the wall-mounted 5,000 watt dummy load, so that it's not next to the electrical area. I want to move it forward, and it's taking a ridiculously long time, but the current generator does work. The current generator is being maintained with a major service contract once a year and a minor service contract every halfway through the year. So it is still working. We're just, and so I'll try to keep that project on track.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd feel better if we got that done. Thank you.
Yeah, someday it won't be on it actually shouldn't even be on new business. It's so old business. It's not funny, but yeah.
Questions, anyone?
The one thing I'll say was the idea of, at one point, John Babina felt that, why are we trying to keep an old and a new one? Why are we trying to maintain 2? Just bring in the better one. But when I talked to him a few months ago, he said, it's so hard to get parts now with supply issues, and it's so hard to get help that if anything were to go wrong with the primary generator, there aren't many people that then have a secondary one that they could switch to, but we would. And so he's now in agreement with keeping up maintenance on both and to keeping both of them.
They both use the same fuel?
Yeah, they're both propane. The one that got donated was set up for natural gas. So it needs to have the carburetor nozzle changed for the different pressure of propane versus natural gas, but that part is available. And we, of course, would have it installed by the authorized dealer and tested and all that stuff. Otherwise, it was working fine. In fact, the first selectman is a wonderfully thorough administrator. Before we had the town accept the donation of the used generator, we paid to have the company that had been maintaining it and was an authorized service provider for it run out and do a complete test and check and write it all up to say, yeah, this is a functioning unit that is worth, that's worthy of being received as a donation by the town. Of course, it's been sitting in a warehouse ever since then, but it's been sitting high and dry. No mice building nests inside it, like have built nests inside our existing generator. But now we've got plenty of wire to keep them out. So yeah, that's the status of it.
I'd probably buy that fuel conversion kit before that.
You're right. We should order it today before we do anything else.
Okay, any questions? No? Moving on to public participation. This is your chance, Jane and Rose, if you got something to say, or Mark.
Because I'm the public, no comments tonight. I'm trying to keep the meeting short and sweet.
Too late. Jane, Rose, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
But I do concur about getting rationales for cost increases, because you can't budget for things when price increases has come up out of left field with no explanation.
Thank you.
That's what I agree too, Mark. We're just paying money. We don't know why. We don't know how much.
If I remember correctly, it was linked to a cable TV that was owned by New London. Is that correct, Kurt?
I believe it was operating under the City of New London's franchise from the Department of Public Utility Control. And the town, City of New London didn't want to operate it. They chose a commercial operator, and they wanted some money back for it. Yeah, that was it. But comparing what a for-profit entity pays a city to operate an exclusive service is very different than a nonprofit like Wmnr paying to operate a non-exclusive just to pay its fair share of services rendered on its behalf.
Makes sense. All right. If nobody else has anything else to add in the public participation part, I guess we need to move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
At what time? At 8:26 I have on my computer. It's like,
Yeah.
so you-
Okay.
That's good.